Bardstown's is a little dumped if anybody doesn't.
Oh, not at all.
Cool. Thanks. If you guys aren't interested in, trying whiskey at 10 a.m., these are going to be dump cups for you. Wow, okay, you guys have a huge one.
No problem.
Oh, yeah. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Happy to join you.
Yeah, it was a good drive. A little windy out there today, but. Oh, yeah. Rob, do you have text sheets for all of your discoveries that you have? Okay, I'll send them over to you. Because I didn't print those, I didn't know exactly what would be on site, so I kind of printed the core, but I'll send them so that at least you
That'd be
can
great.
have them. Because I know there's a lot in the mash bills, so it's hard to memorize. Even for me, I have the stuff memorized that's like current, but once we get like a year removed, what was in that one? Here we go. So I'm Olivia, guys. I work for Bardstown Bourbon Company and Green River Distillery. They are two fully distinct distilleries, but we're same ownership, so we're like sister distilleries, I guess. In fact, this year we have changed our company name to Lofted Spirits, which is basically a way to now have an umbrella over it. Saying, oh, I work for Bardstown Bourbon Company and Green River Distillery. It's like, okay. So now I work for Lofted Spirits, but we own both of these brands, right?
Are there any other brands under Lofted?
No, but there is, of course, our contract distillery too, which is a huge part of our business. So yeah, this is a way, and of course, if we end up acquiring more.
And is that just through Bardstown, the contract?
Green River does it too, actually.
Okay, cool.
So this is a good jumping off point, actually. So Bardstown Bourbon Company is kind of like the more like modern, innovative one. They're both incredibly good whiskeys, but they just have sort of a different ethos and style. So Bardstown, again, being like sort of really modern, very transparent. We do a lot of custom distilling there. And so the difference between saying, we custom distill and we contract distill is like when people are using our facility to make their product, their whiskeys, they actually get to choose their own mash bills, their own recipe. So, for instance, we do probably about 50 different mash bills a year. You guys know mash bill? Yeah. So, we do about 50 different ones. Only 8 of those are actually Bardstown's juice. The rest of them are like, let's say you had a capital to start up a bourbon company, but you didn't actually have the capability of having a physical distillery yet. So let's say for a week at a time, we will distill a different brand's product exactly to their specs and how they want. Whereas Green River is contract distilling. So one that I know I can disclose is like Jepson's bourbon right now, which it's alongside Jepson's War. They actually get all of their bourbon from Green River. But that is Green River's own like regular mash bill that they do. So for instance, the Kentucky Straight bourbon that we run, that is what turns into Jepson's. They buy it from us and they finish aging it. So it's no longer our product. We sold it to them, and then they finish aging it in Chicago and it goes out with their. So that's like the difference between custom and contract. But at least up until this year, about 80% of our business was that custom and contract. We are in a little bit, like the whole country is in a little bit of a plateau as far as whiskey goes. I don't know if you guys have actually seen it in your business, was that custom and contract. We are in a little bit, like the whole country is in a little bit of a plateau as far as whiskey goes. I don't know if you guys have actually seen it in your business at all? Is it felt like it's down?
We haven't just, but we only opened in October, so we're just,
Yeah, you don't have, it's not a huge gauge, yeah. Well, we are still doing really great as a company, and I'm happy about that because my job kind of depends on it. But just as a whole across the country, whiskey is like leveling out for the first time in 20 years. It is kind of a result of like, I think a bunch of different things, but the main one is that people are gravitating towards agave a lot more. Tequila and mezcal seems to be like really the most popular category as far as spirits at this exact moment. There's also the fact that people, younger than me, are drinking a little bit less and not going for those brown spirits and like the heavy hitters as much, as a lot more like low ABV, but also clear spirits consumption. So again, we're lucky because 10 years on, we're still growing and we're still even hiring and building up our workforce. But when we see what's going on, and it's a little bit different than it was 10 years ago when Pappy was all the rage and everybody was willing to pay any price point for all these whiskeys. Okay, so I'm going to pour these for y'all while I tell you about Bardstown's history. So starting out, I printed you guys those sheets that have the origin series for Bardstown on them. That being like our core. This is the backbone of our brand. So what we did is in 2014 is when we actually started laying barrels down. So you got the clear distillate right before being aged. But at that time, we still wanted to be able to put product out into the market. So we were really well known for doing blending and sourcing of whiskeys, which happens, all over this country as well as with Scotch and,
are you talking Freer or Bardstown?
This is Bardstown.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny because the dates that both Green River and Bardstown, both 2014, which is interesting. So the Discovery Series is something that is still in production and you guys have a number of expressions from, but the Fusion Series is no longer, and that was like kind of our original release. Again, because we didn't actually have enough of our own juice at an age where we could put it out in the market. And a lot of whiskey companies get through that point in their inception by making vodka or gin, basically things that they can sell right away without having to age it. And that's really important because how else can you be making money and still continue production? But because of the fact that we had this custom distilling, we were able to never go into the kind of vodka gin realm. It's kind of cool. When I first started working with the brand, I was on a distributor side. I was employed by, somebody who is like a salesperson and distributes hundreds of things. But at that time, this Origin Series didn't exist yet. What we did have is we're selling futures barrels. So this was basically a single barrel program for businesses such as yourselves, or even the Binnies and Woodmans and Heinens of the world. But we were selling barrels that weren't going to be ready yet for another 4 years. And it was a way to kind of get through that. And then the other way was this sourcing and blending. So for the Fusion and Discovery Series, we were buying from, let's say, Weller, Heaven Hill, MGP, these other established distilleries, and then bringing them in and blending them to our liking and putting out, kind of a source product. But the cool thing about Bardstown is that we've always been incredibly transparent about that. Every single label, and I'll actually pass around one of the discoveries because it's a good example.
So is anything currently sourced at Bardstown?
Yes, only what goes into the Discovery Series and the Collaboration Series. So everything in our Origin Series is 100% our juice. currently all 6 years old. If anything, it might get older, but right now they're all 6. But so like for instance, this is this Discovery Series 9. It's from like about a year and a half ago. And I'll let you pass it around, but NDAs prohibit us from putting the actual distillery name on the label because again, kind of like the Jepsons thing, once we buy it, it's not really any longer a Van Hill. It's now our juice. So, but we'll put what the exact mash bill is and where it's sourced from. So it's like Indiana, it's Indiana, you know what it is, it's MGP. But the Kentucky ones, you know, you can look up the mash bill pretty easily, figure out who they are. And so the Discovery 12 series, which was actually released in December, is the first one of that Discovery series that actually has our own product in it.
Which one was that?
12, which by the way, I just had our last few cases released, so if you want to get a couple bottles of it, I have it available for it.
Yeah.
Like we literally, I begged the distributor, I said, can you just open this up so that I can put it wherever I want? And you guys are obviously huge supporters, so if you're interested, we should do that. But that's the first one that has our own juice at all. This one here, this is all source stuff. And then the other thing, so we've gone over Origin series a little bit, the Discovery series. Discovery so names because we're discovering old, weird, rare barrels at other distilleries. And then the collaboration. So the collaborative series is where we pair with either a beer, a wine, or a different spirits distillery or producer, and we age whiskeys further in their barrels. So we have the Goose Island one, which obviously Goose Island is up in Chicago, and we have finished bourbons in their Bourbon County Stout barrels. For this one, the Amrit that I'm just kind of passing around for you guys, it was that 60% corn, and then the remaining 4% is malted barley. Speaking to the grains for a moment, we are sourcing all of our corn and wheat from within 100 miles of the distillery, but the rye and the barley are generally from more northern climes. We do source from Minnesota and Montana, historically a lot from Canada. Hopefully that's still going to be an option, but certainly we're trying to stay more domestic over the course of whatever is going on economically with that. But we have historically gotten a lot of it from Canada too. Rye just doesn't really grow as well, even at this even this far south.
What is on this? What is this one?
That's Kentucky straight, so it's 60% corn.
What's on here?
The white label, the first one?
Is that what it is?
Yeah. It may just call itself Origin Series Bourbon, but that's like the flagship, the base, and it is a Kentucky straight bourbon. That's what it says on the label. I should probably just squeeze that word in there. But yeah, 60% corn, 36% rye, and 4% malted barley. Again, 6 years age here. Now, if this was only like 22% rye, I wouldn't call it high rye bourbon. It would just sort of be like Kentucky straight. But once you're creeping up over 30% of rye in that blend, you can kind of call it that. Like for instance, I have a Wildfire. They're like kind of a chain restaurant. They're doing a Manhattan with this, which is sort of known as being a rye drink, but because this is a higher rate content, it really balances out really well, and especially with the liquid they're using. You can get a little bit of the spiciness from it. It's 96 proof. And I'm going to come with the next one for y'all. Do you have any questions for me so far? Aside from, of course, who's being good, asking questions. No? Feel free to jump, guys. Like I said, I'm not necessarily encouraging you to...
Yeah, right.
Actually, so high.
Oh, that's great. Where are you going?
Well, because I came from Chicago and now I'm going down to O'Fallon.
Yeah, it's about
This is
2 hours.
the Kentucky, or sorry, Bardstown. Right? Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's like up the northern end of the St. Louis suburbs.
Great. Absolutely. Okay, so this bottled and bond. People tend to kind of have a favorite between the bottled and bond and the Kentucky Straight because this one has a little bit of wheat to it. Do you guys know the bottled and bond rules? Yeah. Yeah, cool. So yeah, obviously this one is 100 proof. This is where I get to talk about our master distiller a little bit. Steve Nally is the master distiller for both Bardstown and Green River. He, for people like people will know his name. He was the master distiller of Maker's Mark for over 30 years. So he's kind of known as like the wheat king of Kentucky because he has made so much wheated whiskey for so long. But when we started Bardstown, our original founder, who has since passed, but he left and he went to Steve Nally, who was retired from Maker's Mark, and asked him if he would join on and create our whiskeys. And he said, well, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know exactly what he said, but he said, I've been making the exact same thing at Maker's Mark for a very, very long time, and while it's been fun to make such a cool product, it was basically one. I want to be able to have fun and make what I want to make if I'm going to come and join this workforce. So the bottled and bond was the first mash bill we wanted to create. It does have a little bit of wheat, but not so much that we would call it high wheat, if that makes sense. It can be like, it can be a little bit confusing when people call this a wheated bourbon because we see the next one is like, what are we? Anyway, but regardless, this one does have 20% wheat in it, 68% corn, and then 12% malted barley. So you've upped the barley a little bit. When I think about whiskey recipes, I kind of think about bread, sort of in the way that like, right, cornbread is pretty sweet, but it's also heartier, has a little bit more like earthy note to it, and that's like bourbon. That's where all that corn is from. And then rye is like a little bit more vegetal, a little spicier, and that's what you get from rye when you put it in the blend. And then with wheat, I kind of think of like white bread, where it's like totally approachable and very smooth and soft. And that's what wheat kind of gives it as a character of the whiskey. Malted barley, we don't generally make bread with it, but you get the idea. Barley bread would be pretty intense, I think. But yeah, so this was the wheat. It was the one they wanted to make, and we wanted to make sure that when we started releasing the Origin series, it was not without this. Like, we waited to make sure that the bottle was ready before putting it out into the world. Does anybody have a preference between the two? I'm going to put these up too. First.
I do
I mean, it's higher proof.
like the bottom bun with the rye. I like the.
This one is, I think this
I like the mouthfeel.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. This
I
one is very spicy. Yeah, you have this one.
Yeah.
The first one.
And this progression is fun because you'll see on the next one too, like, we went up in proof here by 4 points,
Yeah.
but still somehow it's tougher because of the builds, the natural. So has anybody ever been to Bardstown, whether the town or the distillery before?
Yes,
Both?
the town.
Cool, yeah, well, we're a good company. There is a pretty dense population of bourbon distilleries in
Yeah.
Bardstown, Robert. And we are closest to Luxborough and Jimmy, which, this is like really lame, but the first time I drove past it, it says James Bean. Oh, right, like that's the given name for each year. It cracked up to myself. It was like, James Bean Distillery.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like gin.
Oh. I was like,
the sun changed.
I was alone and it was all around my head and I was glad for it.
So imagine if it's like Johannes bean.
So this guy, we're going up in proof even a little bit more, but this was released just in October of last year. So It has, this is like kind of the new guy on Origin Series. Yeah. The other three were all released at the same time in late 2022. But this came out just last year. And I think that we were really just perfecting it. It was the last mash bill created, and therefore it had a, was behind schedule the rest of them. This one being 106 proof, you think it would really like kind of hit you a lot harder than the last, but it's an example of how much that mash bill can really change things. So this one is 39% wheat. So this is why we've got it listed as high wheat program, and it certainly is. I can do math with 53% corn, and then that leaves 8% off. Most of I get to the barley, and I'm like, yeah. So this is what's interesting about it. If you are familiar with wheated bourbons, or if you have customers that are going to be like really on their stuff, you really get the best flavor out of wheated bourbons when they're distilled at a lower, I guess, ABV. So unlike these first two that were distilled at around like 122 proof when they came off of the still, and then diluted down, of course, to where they're at. This actually was distilled to 108 proof. So we've only taken a very minimal amount of water and gotten it just down to 106. The reason that it's better to distill like that at a lower ABV for wheated is, again, the softer qualities. If you are really kind of pumping it out at a high heat for the distillation and amping up that ABV, you're losing a lot of the nuance. Now, yeah, you can dilute it down after, but you already started with something that didn't have like, as much of the esters or as much of the, kind of like green component to it. So the fact that, 106, but only diluted down by 1%, like it's 1% water calories. Wheated is maybe the most popular category right now. I feel like that's probably true in this area as well. Ron, what do you think? Wheated bourbons tend to, they're kind of like the most popular category right now. I think it's because of like Weller and Clevens and well, I am sure you guys will have plenty of other brands and Weller Antique in particular that will make the people happy with the wheated palate. But I will say that this has been just the killer for us because being only one proof point lower than the red label Weller Antique, but also having an age statement and also being, to my mind, of course, I'm biased, a little bit more nuanced, a little bit more complex. It's really been a good way to at least introduce people to something new. I should backtrack a little bit too and say this is an incredibly great upsell for somebody who really likes bullet bourbon. Bullet's a slightly lower price point, but it's incredibly similar mash bill. And it's also younger. So if somebody's like, I usually drink bullet bourbon, this is a really good move for them.
Which one is
The Kentucky Street, the first one. And these I'm just picking out like the specific exact match. Clearly you can introduce people to whatever you want. But for the bottled bond, I'd say the closest is Buffalo Trace as far as flavor profile goes, as far as being an upsell and giving them an idea of something new to try.
That's what we sell, not we. Buffalo Trace. Question, do you have a toasted in your, anywhere?
Like officially called toasted? No, but when we get to the rye, I will say something really cool about it. Probably my favorite actually out of everything I'm showing you, which is a lot.
If you call it toasted, Izzy will sell it to everybody.
Okay.
I love toasted biscuits.
Did you tell me like I love toast with the no, please.
The Italian
Yeah.
toasted, I really your bottle. And the Mulu toasted.
Oh, yeah.
Higher proof.
I tried that for the first time the last time I was down there in Louisville. I don't know, Smokies is better.
Yeah, the Columbia's more smooth. That one's a lot harsher, I would say. It's 108 proof, so. The Penelope, I don't know.
Yeah, the Penelope is rye is a category that's a little finicky for people, but I still think you'll like this one. Yeah, so I mean, and then lastly, this one, Weller Antique is like the closest. Now, again, the cool thing is, all three of those that I mentioned are not age-taken whiskeys. Clearly, they have to be of a certain age to be bourbon, but it's, at the price point and the quality that we're at with a 6-year is pretty great, and to be able to say it too. They'll also always say distilled date too, so this one's 2018.
Which is that one that you have?
Yeah. And like, I don't know which bottles, these are probably all 2018, no, this one's fall 2017. So it will always tell you which batch it was and when it was distilled. The rye is my absolute favorite. Sometimes I like some of the collaborations more, but this guy's my jam. Okay, so one of those collaborative series that we did a couple years ago was with the West Virginia Great Barrel Company. It sold out, and you might still see it on some shelves every once in a while.
Is that the gingerbread one?
The West Virginia Great Barrel Company?
Isn't that the gingerbread? The West Virginia?
Yeah.
Gingerbread stout?
Yeah.
Oh, really? They do stout in their barrels? Oh, that's cool.
It's actually really good.
I would love to try that. Yeah, so they're a small little cooperage in West Virginia, go here, and they work a lot with cherry wood. And then another thing that they do that's really cool is that they infrared toast their barrels. So rather than it being like live torch, right? It's like, what? I'm still thinking, yeah, it's an infrared light, so it's, I'm equating it to like an oven instead of it being like live fire.
Yeah.
And so it's still toasting it, almost like convection. You know?
Is that this one you're talking about?
So like that's like.
Well, getting to how it plays into this one. That one was all aged in like 100% cherry wood. This is, we finish it with a zebra barrel.
A zebra?
Yeah. So, this is a 95.5 rye, and it is aged initially for 6 years in 100% new charcoal. But then we finish it for a year in the zebra barrel. So from West Virginia Great Barrel Company, we've got this cherry wood oak, cherry wood oak, cherry wood oak, all the way around. The cherry wood's quite expensive, so that's really why we didn't go full barrel. But also, because of the infrared toasting, it's a lot more permeable than when you char the heck out of a barrel and you got like kind of that black, like, it's almost not nearly as porous, I guess. So you get a lot more of the flavor of the wood. So even though it's a 95.5 rye, which we've seen many times, there's several distilleries that make 95.5, I think that it's softer. It gets a little bit of a fruit note. So even though rye tends to be really spicy, and this is 95.5, I know. Cherry wood is known to be one of the only woods that will actually impart the flavor of its fruit into the wood and then therefore into the product. I just think it's so cool. And we do have a 6-year age statement on this, but they can be up to 7 years. It's just, we put the youngest age on the age statement, but we finish them for 7 months to a year in those zebra barrels.
So is that zebra barrel have the infrared toasting? you're talking
Yeah,
about? That's
exactly.
part of
Yeah. So that's why, like, you end up with this like quite spicy rye at the end of this normal 6-year aging, and then when we put it into there, it's really going through that wood a lot more, having it be way more porous, and it's taking out a lot of that spice and adding in more fruity.
I've never had this. It's very good.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that was good.
And especially for people who say that they don't like rye, this is a really good option.
Yeah.
And when we try the Green River rye, which is also very good, you'll be like, oh, no, that's rye. It's like, this is just, it's got 2 months. And it does say on the barrel, it says, finished in toasted cherry wood and oak barrel. So you do have the word toasted.
There you go. I need to order a case
And I mean, there's other terms that you can apply, like you can call it a double wood too, which is, yeah, a buzzword. A double wood rye.
I think zebra's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
It is, and when I send you tech sheets for the fun ones you have, I think I also have like a little kind of infographic on how they do it. I watched a video of it, it still doesn't really make sense. It's like this big like infrared coil, and they just put it into the center of the barrel and it toasts it. and
No, I
things
see.
like that.
Okay.
So would that give it a different taste than like a regular?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 'cause you're getting less of the baking spice stuff, and more of the softer, sweeter fruit notes that you get from a cherry. That's the point of why they do that too. I think it's a small community in West Virginia, and I think that they probably started by trying to just try a lot of cherry barrel, and it didn't give them
Yeah.
results.
Are they doing that infrared zebra toasting at the Bardstown distillery in Kentucky?
Something's gonna happen. No, we are getting the barrels already
Okay.
toasted from them.
Got it.
And in fact, we don't have our own cooperage at Bardstown at all, so we source from a couple of different companies. I don't think that we'll ever do a cooperage. People are closing cooperages right now, which is kind of interesting. But you know, they do that at the West Virginia Company. Okay, finish my office.
Are these four consistently available?
Yes, absolutely. The only time that they wouldn't be is if something just weird happened, like a run on it, because we have consistent barrels aging all the time. Like for instance, we did have, I think, like a 3-week gap at the end of last year, just because we sold out on accident,
Yeah.
and had to immediately do a new bottling. But they're ubiquitous, and these four as well. These are the kind of. Sometimes I've liked some of the collaborations more, but this guy's my jam. Okay, so one of those collaborative series that we did a couple years ago was with the West Virginia Great Barrel Company. It sold out. You might still see it on some shelves every once in a while. Okay. Stop it.
Is that the gingerbread one?
The West Virginia Great Barrel Company?
Isn't that the gingerbread? The West?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gingerbread stout?
Yeah.
Oh, really? They did a stout in their barrels? Oh, that's cool.
It's actually really good.
I would love to try that. But yeah, so they're a small cooperage in West Virginia, go figure. And they work a lot with cherry wood. And then another thing that they do that's really cool is that they infrared toast their barrels. So rather than it being like live torch, right? It's like, I'm still thinking, yeah, it's an infrared light. So it's,
I never heard of
I'm
that.
equating it to like an oven instead of it being like live fire.
Yeah.
And so it's still toasting it, almost like convection. You know?
Is that this one you're talking about?
So like this is like.
Well, I'm getting to how it plays into this one. That one was all aged in like 100% cherry wood. This is, we finish it with a zebra barrel from them.
A zebra barrel?
Yeah. So, this is a 95.5 rye, and it is aged initially for 6 years in 100% new charred oak. But then we finish it for a year in the zebra barrel. So from West Virginia Great Barrel Company, we've got this cherry wood oak, cherry wood oak, cherry wood oak, all the way around. The cherry wood is quite expensive, so that's really why we didn't go full barrel. But also, because of the infrared toasting, it's a lot more permeable than when you char the heck out of a barrel and you got like kind of that black, like it's almost not nearly as porous, I guess. So you get a lot more of the flavor of the wood. So even though it's a 95.5 rye, which we've seen many times, there's several distilleries that make a 95.5. I think that it's softer. It gets a little bit of a fruit note. So even though rye tends to be really spicy, and this is 95% rye, I know. Cherry wood is known to be one of the only woods that will actually impart the flavor of its fruit into the wood and then therefore into the product. I just think it's so cool. And we do have a 6-year age statement on this, but they can be up to 7 years. It's just, we put the youngest age on the age statement, but we finished them for 7 months to a year in those zebra barrels.
So is that zebra barrel have an infrared?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's why, like, you end up with this like quite spicy rye at the end of its normal 6-year aging. Then when we put it into there, it's really going through that wood a lot more, having it being way more porous, and it's taking out a lot of that spice and adding in more fruity, softer
I've never had it.
notes.
This is very good.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, that's good.
And especially for people who say that they don't like rye, this is a really good option.
Yeah.
And when we try the Green River rye, which is also very good, you'll be like, oh, no, that's rye. It's like, this is just, it's got like 3 months. And it does say on the barrel, it says, finished in toasted cherry wood and oak barrel. So you do have the word toasted.
There you go, Izzy. You need to order a case of that.
And I mean, there's other terms that you can apply, like you can call it a double wood too, which is, you know, a buzzword. A double wood rye.
I think zebra is cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
It is, and when I send you text sheets for the fun ones you have, I think I also have like a little kind of infographic on how they do it. I watched a video of it. It still doesn't really make sense. It's like this big like infrared coil, and they just put it in the center of the barrel and it toasts it. Exactly.
So would that give it a different taste than like a regular?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because you're getting less of the baking spice stuff, and more of the softer, sweeter fruit notes that you get from like cherry wood. That's the point of why they do that too. I think it's a small community in West Virginia, and I think that they probably started by trying to just char the hell out of cherry wood barrel, and it didn't give them
Yeah,
the
but they
results.
Are they doing that infrared zebra toasting at the Bardstown distillery in Kentucky?
No, we are getting the barrels already toasted from them.
Got it.
And in fact, we don't have our own cooperage at Bardstown at all, so we source from a couple of different companies. I don't think that we'll ever do a cooperage. People are closing cooperages right now, which is kind of a pain. But you know, they do that at the West Virginia Green Barrel Company. Okay, finally turn that off, guys.
Are these 4 consistently available?
Yes,
They are.
absolutely. The only time that they wouldn't be is if something just weird happened, like a run on it, because we have consistent barrels aging all the time. Like for instance, the weeded, we did have, I think, like a 3-week gap at the end of last year, just because we sold out on accident. And had to immediately do a new bottling. But they're ubiquitous, and these 4 as well. These are the kind of 8 that are always running. I don't know why I brought these over. I feel like I'm using half my bottles and half yours. I'm gonna make sure I'm using mine. Okay, so Green River is like, wait, any questions on Bardstown? We're gonna go back into them a little bit with the specialty ones, but you guys good? Green River is almost the opposite as far as the way that they kind of are marketed and the way that